Hello, and today we're going to do for Tip Thursday. I want to talk about mental health and progressing into your new path on health. The hardest part is when you start your journey to health, your journey to fitness, the biggest issue is generally that you're not all in it in your mind. There's some form of doubt, there's some form of that little edge waiting, just waiting to break or expecting yourself to fail. And I'm talking about this as a tips on Thursday because this is one of the hardest things that I had to face. This is one of the hardest things that I had to deal with when I first started this journey again. Like I've said a couple times before, when I started this quite a few years ago, I did lose quite a bit of weight. But it was a very radical diet. One, cut almost everything out of your life. Everything's bad, which I had to learn again the hard way. But there was no exercise. There was nothing else. It was just radical diet. There was nothing to cope with the issues that I had. Stress, frustrations, any of those problems. There was nothing to cope. There was no way to deal with it. So unfortunately, when push came to shove, I crumbled. And so did my diet. And I crumbled hard. Now, for any of you like me that, for the lack of a better word, let's just put it as abuse food. Because that's the term everybody likes to use. But what I like to say is we use it as our coping mechanism. That was what I did. I absolutely used it for a coping mechanism. When I was super stressed or frustrated, I would reach for a candy bar. I would reach for a thing of ice cream. I would go get a cinnamon roll because it was that endorphin. It was that release of endorphins I wanted in my brain. And instead of doing it through exercise or different means or dealing with the stress at hand, I ran from it. I hid, and I hid in food. And this is something I wanted to do a tip on because this is the hardest stumbling block when you first start a diet. This is the hardest stumbling block, I really think, when you start this whole transition, this whole movement. And one of the things I really want you to remember is that whether you're afraid to eat because you're afraid of gaining weight or you're using food to hide, those are both abusing something that's supposed to give us energy, something that's supposed to give us nutrition. And it's not that you're a bad person. It's not that I was a bad person. It was just that I didn't have a correct coping mechanism. I couldn't handle it. And so I ran from it. This is something that I wanted to speak to on our first Tip Thursday because I think this was the biggest transition point and honestly the hardest truth I had to face going into my diet was that when I was bored, I would eat. When I was stressed, heartbroken, frustrated, I would eat. I would reach for the sugar. I'd reach for a candy. I'd reach for something sweet or that wholesome, fatty fried French fries, bread, you name it. I wasn't treating it as an energy source, and I wasn't doing something else to work through it. And to start this off, I just wanted to say one thing you need to know is that you're amazing. You are fantastic just the way you are. But you need to look at the deeper fact of what might be the underlying issue with your health. Are you like me? Were you one of those that had an unhealthy relationship with food? Do you really need to find another way around the stress, around the frustration? One of the big things that I did is I had to step aside, and as simple as this sounds, it's really hard to actually do. But you have to realize that this is not your fault. The stress, the frustration, it's a feeling. It's an emotion. It's what you're going through. It doesn't define you. It doesn't say who you are. And the hard part is when you allow something else around you to make you frustrated, to make you stressed, to make you angry, you're giving away your own power to control your own emotions, your own power of yourself to someone else. And that one, to me, was such a huge eye-opening issue because I want to believe I'm strong enough. I'm strong enough that I don't give anybody else any power over me than what I allow. Well, by getting stressed, getting frustrated, gorging on food, I was relinquishing that power. I was relinquishing my power. I was relinquishing my own feelings and allowing somebody else to control them. I had a choice. And when I started my new diet, I had to make a choice because I wasn't going to fall into the same pitfalls. I wasn't going to break down when I hit stress. I was going to push through it. I was going to make a difference in my life this time, and I was going to have the full control of my life and see myself as strong and beautiful and powerful and realize that it's just for a minute. Problems are going to come out of the woodworks, and it's going to attack you. Whatever you would like to call it, Lucifer, Loki, whatever name you want to call it by, there's always that little negative force that wants to try and cripple you, especially when you're at your strongest. And if we can rise above and see it as just that, we can gain so much more power in ourselves and to do the things that we've always dreamed of and we've always wanted to do by getting past that. So I wanted to give this as a tips and tricks because of some of the stuff I did. So when I started the diet again, I did it before my wedding because I wanted to lose a bunch of weight and, have that powerful, amazing reveal moment at my wedding. Well, guess what? I crumbled with the stress and the frustration and different things that fell apart right before my wedding. And I gained all the 46 pounds I had lost before my wedding back. It was devastating. And this was, again, one of those things, like I said, you don't realize until you start looking back at the photos, you start looking back at the experiences. And instead of enjoying what was my wedding time, enjoying my setup of my wedding time, I was stressed, I was frustrated, I was eating inappropriately. It was so sad that that's what I have as my memory, rather than enjoying what the memories were being built. So the tips and tricks that I found is when I start getting frustrated, you can start feeling that welling, that little bit of anxiety, or you're holding your breath. First thing I did is I would go for a walk, or I'd sit there and go, okay, why am I frustrated? And then you rationalize out, okay, I'm frustrated because my boss just come in, they're stressed over this. Am I going to allow that stress to affect me? No, I do a good job. I can do a good job. These are some of the things that we kind of have to refocus our brain. The other part too is not just the stress and frustration, but our own belittlement that we do, that lovely little critique that happens in our brain when we get up in the morning and look at ourselves in the mirror. A big thing to change that is absolutely look in the mirror, and instead of instantly going to that negative statement, I want you to look in that mirror and say, damn, I'm hot. Man, I am beautiful. Say these kind of things. Make that affirmation. And you know what? Even if you're having a hard time with that affirmation, take an erasable marker, write on your mirror or your vanity, I'm hot. I'm beautiful. I'm strong. Whatever affirmation you need to start building that back in your mind. It sounds silly, but I promise you, it really works. That positive outlook, especially at yourself, makes a big difference. The other part of it too is where you work out, where your closet is, put up a picture, put up a poster that says, I am making great progress. I am doing great things and making great strides in my health. Because no matter what little pitfall you hit, you still are. You're making amazing success. Don't ever forget that. Just the simple fact of where you are today from where you started is a huge progress, is a huge goal. Don't ever relinquish that or diminish your own work because you are working so hard. Just because the scale isn't perfect, just because you don't feel like it's enough, doesn't mean you're not making great progress. You're doing amazing things. It's time for you to see it. It's time for you to let yourself see it. And the biggest part of it is when you do that, then you'll break that vicious cycle with food abuse. You'll break that vicious cycle with not feeling like you're enough. I hope this helps. I'm going to do some more of these later on as we go on, but I hope this little beginning helps with that tip and trick of getting out of your mind and starting with you're amazing, and this journey you're going on is amazing. Good luck. And honestly, if you ever need just somebody to bounce off of or a little bit of support, message me completely. I'm always here because I know I've been there. I've felt that way, and I would gladly be here for anybody else that does as well.